Welcome to Ritz Barrels. It's Thursday, September 19th. Derek VanRiper, Sarris, Trevor May. It's our final regular season live stream of 2024. We got a good one lined up. We've got some news to get to off the top. We've got some questions about unique pitches. Kumar Rocker, does he throw a death ball? Splinkers, are they real? Do they actually exist? Are they their own pitch, or are they just something else with a new name? We'll dig into those questions. And we've got our first ever build a pitcher draft inspired by one of our listeners. Ben Johnson sent us a great message on Discord with a whole bunch of different traits the pitchers could have. We're going to draft those traits and see who actually builds the best pitcher. We'll see if I can even build an actual pitcher. I'm not even sure I'm going to get a functioning major league pitcher out of this draft, especially dealing with you two guys.
We could get some people from Discord telling us who they think we drafted. Like after we get a guy, like they'd be like, and I'll try to see if somebody fits, if there's a comp for who we did, or we just all figured out a way to pick Pedro Martinez.
That won't happen. I'm pretty sure that can't happen based on the way the draft is set up. So we'll have that in just a little while. We've also got a special edition of Name That Dude that Trevor cooked up for this week. So we'll get to that a little bit later on in the show.
It's gonna be
Let's kick things off. Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun. I mean, it's already a party. The party started last night.
Oh, you're already happy with the first item. Look at this.
Wow. Who put that there? Who did this? Who made the rundown? The Brewers clinched their fourth NL Central title in 6 years. I never thought this would happen as a kid, by the way. I grew up watching this team in the late 90s and early 2000s, and they were bad, consistently bad. It's amazing I like baseball at all, let alone that I stayed a fan of this team. I have a dog, Golden Doodle. She's 7 years old. She's seen the Brewers win more division titles in her lifetime than they've won in the rest of their existence. That's a pretty big deal, right? So my dog is charmed. My team is playing really well. I think people have a lot of questions about the quality of the starting pitching in the postseason, how it's going to hold up. But the run they're on right now is amazing for this franchise. No questions about that. I think what's tricky now is they're in this stretch for these last 3 series where everything still matters as far as trying to get a first-round bye. That's still within reach, right? The Dodgers and Phillies are at least reachable for the Brewers, so they can't just coast for the next 10 days. Thursday's lineup might be a little bit watered down following the celebration. I did see they had a stroller full of non-alcoholic beer in the clubhouse for Jackson Churio because he's 20, so nice work on that all around. But all right, is it okay that I'm celebrating division titles as a fan? Is it cool to be happy about this? Because it's a grind. It is a grind to win division titles. It's hard to do.
You should celebrate everything. You should, every time and there's any sort of accomplishment, it should be celebrated, because you just never know. I hear Trevor Plouffe talk about this a lot, how he never had a playoff AB, and it's something that he just it drives him nuts. They can't speak on that at all. And one of the biggest regrets I have from my career is 2022 not being able to. We didn't celebrate at all. We won 101 games. We didn't have one celebration because it was just, the timing was weird. And when we clinched, we had just lost the division, and it's they don't want us celebrating because we were going to make the playoffs no matter what. So, and then when we clinched the playoff spot, it was like we were going into the Brave series. So it was like we couldn't celebrate, and then we just got beat in the first round. So yeah, it sucks because I think baseball players, the players themselves anyway, we tend to say, okay, what's next? I hear Shaq talk about this a lot. There was really no milestones for him. He's always like, okay, so what's the next thing? I'm supposed to do these things. And that just made enjoying being successful hard when he was playing. And he's since had come around to enjoying it later, but he wishes he would have enjoyed it more then. And then I think that applies to fans too. I think you should take every little victory. Yeah, of course, it's, save the big celebration for a World Series championship, but say, you know what, there's an accomplishment and you guys win in the division. It's been a really fun season to watch. So we're going to be happy for a bit, but it might just be a day or two. And then we're going to get back on it. But don't be afraid to be happy. It's so weird
to be happy. Yeah,
it's a terrible way to live your life. It's to miss milestones and to not celebrate them. And I think it's the existential question of what's next. The bigger the achievement, if you're asking that question instead of enjoying it, you've missed it. You've absolutely kind of failed the lesson of enjoying part of the bride. Like that's
Yeah, I remember, growing up being a Braves fan, there's a lot of like, oh, well, they're not actually that good because they haven't won at all, like they're not a dynasty and all this stuff. And I kind of railed against it, being like, no, man, I've seen a lot of really great baseball. I've seen Hall of Fame pitchers. I've seen clinch divisions. I've seen, and then finally, the mountaintop, eventually. But you can focus on the negative in baseball so easily because it's a game of failure and it's day to day to day to day. It's such a grind. It's like, yeah, sometimes just accept your flowers.
Yeah, so enjoy it, Brewers fans. It's okay. You know what? No matter what happens from this point forward, 4 division titles in 6 years is a lot of fun. Now, the less fun news of the day on Wednesday, Craig Kimbrel was DFA'd by the Orioles, and I think we're at the point now where contending teams are finally going to stop expecting vintage Craig Kimbrel. We've seen him run out of gas in a few postseasons. That's kind of been the story of the last few years of his career. My question for you guys is, looking at him compared to other recent great relievers and all-time great relievers, is there actually a path for Craig Kimbrel to make it to Cooperstown, or does he have a resume that fits more into the hall of very good? Like, where do you fall on this one,
I tend to think that relievers should be judged against relievers, and that it's sort of like, should kickers be in the Hall of Fame for football? I don't want to wade into that discourse, but I think in baseball that relievers are a big part of the game. They pitch half the innings in any given season, and so not having X amount of relievers in the Hall of Fame doesn't make any sense. It's like they are an important part of this game. I know that it's hard to have a long career as a reliever. So we should celebrate. It's like celebrate the flowers when you got them. It's like when you have a reliever who makes it through a whole like long career and becomes one of the 10 best relievers of all time, then maybe you should put him in the Hall of Fame. So I don't know what that number is though. 10 is kind of a funny thing to throw out there because right now, Craig Kimbrel is 10th all time in reliever WAR. Now, the top 5 are in the Hall of Fame. Mariano Rivera, Goose Gossage, Trevor Hoffman, Raleigh Fingers, Lee Smith. Boom, roasted. So we're cool with 5. But are we going to do 10? Because Billy Wagner is 7. Kenley Jansen is 6. Aroldis Chapman is 8. Doug Jones, who's never going to be in the Hall of Fame, is 9. Craig Kimbrel is 10. Tom Henke is 11. Dennis Eckersley is 12. Joe Nathan is 13. So you start to see like, okay, so where is that line? 10, 13, 15. The line has to increase as we have more baseball, as we play baseball. And as we have longer periods of time where the relievers are pitching half the innings in the game. So I think I did see a tweet. Yeah, right. Chapman is ahead of Kimbrel. I did see a tweet from Sam Miller that, maybe this last 18 games has cost Kimbrel his Hall of Fame thing. And I could see it a little bit because if you go by like ERA 2.59, Billy Wagner was a 2.31 ERA for his career, but Trevor Hoffman was a 2.87. Goose Gossage was a 2.86. So I don't know. I it's borderline, but I lean yes because I think probably the top 10 relievers of all time should be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah,
Maybe we should put 10 total relievers in the
Sorry, that was still condescending. I didn't mean to be. I was trying to lift you up.
I can totally understand. And they're all closers. So if you're not a closer for 15 years in your career, you have no chance. It's the same thing as if you are if you're the best setup guy ever, you're not going to make the Hall of Fame and you're probably going to make one All-Star game. And that was the year your closer got hurt. So it's like,
who was the setup guy for Mariano? He was really good. Wetland?
Probably. Jeff Nelson did it.
I mean, he had a bunch that passed through there over time. But I mean, I thought Rivera took the closer role from Wetland, if my memory holds up right. I was a kid, but I think that's how that played out.
David Robertson did it for a bit. Tried to beat him.
Mark Melanson was going to be the next Mariano Rivera at one point. There was a long time where people thought he's the prospect coming up to the Yankee system. He's going to replace Mo. He's going to be their next elite closer.
Yeah, well, it's the cutter. Everyone was like, if you can throw a cutter, we love you, Mo. The thing is, we have Mo, who was he was the one who got one no, and then it was almost unanimous, right? He was him and Jeter was unanimous and Griffey was unanimous. Are those the two unanimous we have? And Mo was really close. He's a reliever, and he was amazing, but like it's not to the point where he's almost unanimous, and then there's a couple other guys.
Mariano Rivera was the first player to be elected unanimously.
Or he was unanimous. So I always
Derek Jeter was 99.7.
Yeah.
Yeah, Greg Maddux received the highest total number of votes.
Yeah. Okay. So it's like, for example, last year's inductions, Billy Wagner not getting in I was like,
but I think he still will.
I think he still will too. But
he's on.
The thing is, we're having these like, oh, they're like, I don't know, and his numbers are just ridiculous for like, and the way we're waffling here and there, but like Joe Mauer, I played with him, but he was just like, he's in. So it was like, I was like, it's not that big of a difference, guy. Like, it's not that big. They're different type of players, and WAR is different. But WAR just doesn't do anything for relievers. So, I think,
and I get it, because WAR is like your contribution to the win, and so I get why WAR does that. But
maybe they need their own.
Just make it their own category.
Yeah, compare them to each other, because we can't just have five relievers or 6 total. Is Eckersley in?
Yeah, he's in.
Yeah, so there's like 7, like total.
All time,
which is nuts. That's crazy.
I think 7 Hall of Fame relievers. That doesn't pass the sniff test for me, man.
I think Kimbrel is, because he has that number, and also his first like 7 or 8 years he was ridiculous. So like they were incredible. He has a stretch in there where like he was unhittable for 1,000 days, right? Like that's insane. He did what Zach Britton did for 5 years in a row.
Oh my God, his first 5 years with the Braves, his ERA was like 1.2.
He had like a 1.2 for 5 years.
Yeah,
that's incredible. And Kenley's going to get in too, and he absolutely should. And he's up there in the totals. He's approaching these guys. But I think that maybe they're not going to be unanimous, but like it shouldn't be that long of a conversation. But I think Kimbrel's definitely probably on the lower limit. I just think longevity too. He's been around for a long time. He's not that old. He got up really young and did it right away. And if we're asking guys to like go get 450 saves, it's just not going to happen anymore unless you're Class A. He almost did it in 3 years. But let's use Emmanuel Clase as an example. He has to do that 7 more years.
Right, and you'd bet against it because he throws so hard, and most likely he's going to break, or he's not going to throw as hard. Like 100 things are going to happen between now and 7 years from now to Emmanuel Clase that makes it almost impossible for him to be as effective as he is today.
We only have 2 guys with more than 500 saves, and if we make the line 400, then there's 8, and the only person who won't make it into the Hall of Fame with 400 saves probably is John Franco. Which,
there you go.
I think that's fairish. I think 400 saves could be like the 500 home runs of closing.
I mean, that's 50. I think that's pretty good.
That's a lot. Yeah. And Kim was, and I think more like, 10 years of 40 is, that's a 10-year career as a closer. Kimbrel has 440. So,
yeah.
And Kennedy Jansen has 447. Lee Smith is 478 and got in mostly on his saves total. So,
yeah, I think that's sort of your in the hall comp in a lot of ways, in terms of how Jay Jaffe's JAWS system calculates the value of relievers. So I think it can happen. I don't think it's a lock, but it makes a lot of sense. And I'm with you guys. Like, short relievers are an important part of the game. You should have a corner of the Hall of Fame for them. And it's even hard to compare modern relievers to guys from the 70s and 80s because the usage is different, the volume's different, and WAR, is volume driven. So if you're limited to simple, 3-out appearances, and you do that for 12 or 15 years, and you're pretty dominant for most of that time, that's probably going to still fall short of the WAR numbers you see from the relievers of previous generations.
Yeah, I wonder, with the current sort of velocity injury equilibrium that we've found, I don't think we're going to even get a John Franco with 1,250 innings. Lee Smith and John Franco have 1,250 innings. Kenley Jansen 866. Kate Kimbrel 809. Even Francisco Rodriguez 976. Getting to 1,000 career innings seems like you might be asking too much of just like the way players are used these days. It's kind of thinking of like, oh, you need 300 wins to get it. Well, dude, no, then nobody goes in the Hall of Fame anymore because no one's going to get 300 wins anymore.
Yeah, you have to adapt the calculations of greatness for the era. Like, what's really possible? What are the actual limits based on usage that are in place? The limits are completely different now than they used to be. And as Uncle Ted points out on stream, you can't win a World Series without dominant relievers. You're not going to win in the playoffs consistently with a bad bullpen. It doesn't happen.
Or at least you got to have at least 2 guys, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And they got to get hot. Rangers.
Yeah.
Speaking of the Rangers, let's talk about Kumar Rocker for a bit. Does Kumar Rocker throw the elusive death ball? And even let's back this up a little bit. What exactly is the death ball? How does it fit into the broader portfolio of pitches that are out there? How should we define this pitch?
There's a great piece by Brian Menendez on Baseball Prospectus if you want to read up. But my basic explanation is that it is a seam shifted wake breaking ball where the seams keep the ball more vertical and give you unexpected movement in terms of you would expect more horizontal movement than you get. So you look at Kumar Rocker's slot and he throws, a sinkerish fastball. You would expect to have a 2-plane curveball come out of there. Instead, he throws this. So that's a death ball. See, you look at that slot and you think, oh, it's going to go like this. And then it just goes. So that sort of it's like a 1-plane breaking ball. It's just straight and down. And the good news out of the death ball is it's different than expected, which is always good in baseball when you're pitching. And then it's also a more platoon resistant because it doesn't have movement that kind of goes away from one side and towards another. It's just always down the middle. So this is from Brian Menendez's piece. I took the average death ball and Kumar Rocker's right there. It's harder than the average death ball, but it has similar vertical movements, similar active spin, similar spin deviation, and just it's one game of whiff rate. So that might slow down a little bit, but it looks like the death ball to me.
Yeah, the whiff rate was actually pretty good in the minors as well. I know he only has 45 total innings, but it's pretty inflated there. The interesting thing about this is active spin. And so if you're thinking from a physics standpoint, that number being lower is basically, I think about it as it's a looser spin, meaning classically when you throw a slider, everyone try to get the bullet spin, try to get the dot on the back of the ball when you see it when you're pitching, and that dot starts to spread out and become a circle. So it's like what you would have considered a bad slider in 2005. But the thing about it is you can throw it harder and it moves like a curveball without that tumbling action. So it's spinning in a way that doesn't make sense for the movement. And I learned about
slider spin, curveball action, but not curveball horizontal,
but also harder too. So it's like
it's
moving like a curveball, but it's a hard so this is the way to throw a harder curveball. A lot of guys would spike the curveball and then pull the spike off to get it to be faster. And other guys struggle to do it. I did. And I started to throw it like a slider, and they're like, that's basically your curveball, just way harder and better. Which it's funny, based on Savant now, I don't have my numbers like that. So bear with me here. But when I started throwing mine, this was in 2020 when I had it dialed in. I switched to 19, so it's kind of a muddy numbers. But in 19, the drop was 42.7 inches of drop and 5 inches of horizontal, which is below average. But 42 inches of drop is it's smaller than a curveball, but it's pretty.
No, that's about where I think I found death balls were right around there. And the -5 is just a tiny bit more, but a lot of these guys are 0 to 2.
Yeah, 0 to 2. So his is 1 of inches, and it's 42 flat. So mine was 42.7, his is 42 flat.
Yeah.
Vila, mine was a little bit harder. It was 85.8, his is 85. And I had a little bit more horizontal. So that was the difference. I just had a little bit more horizontal, but not a ton, still well below average. So
what were your difficulties with that pitch? Because I thought I saw the shape vary a little bit from pitch to pitch. What What were your difficulties with that pitch? Was it hard to replicate?
Same thing actually, because when he was throwing it and trying to down it into lefties, you have to change your release point because it doesn't have any horizontal.
It
So
got
it looks
more
like a ball to go
horizontal down and
and
into
so you
lefties.
could see it was getting a little bit more horizontal, but not a lot, like an inch or two, which
Yeah.
wasn't enough to get a chase. And it looked a lot different. That's why you see I saw like Cal Raleigh just full spit on it, just like not even remotely close to swinging at a pitch that wasn't that far away from the zone. And that is one thing Kumar's not going to do very well with the lefties is be able to throw back foot, but he will be able to throw below the zone, and guys will chase it over the plate. That is where it'll be good. And I struggled with that for a long time. Throwing balls off the plate and it's just like this far off.
He should throw them low and low away too, because
Blown away
that'll
too,
be
yeah. He
straight.
should stay in the bottom rail of that zone and just
Yeah.
like stay over the plate because the depth is what's playing it. And so that is one thing he'll struggle with a little bit because he has to literally change his angle to the plate in order to get it off the plate a little bit, and that just looks like a ball the whole time.
And it's also it's probably something that he got coached, coming up was back foot your breaking ball to lefties.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's just
and then he's got to go away from that old coaching, I think, and
a little bit, yeah. It's
Yeah.
just not going to be consistent. There'll be some guys that chase down there just because they swing, but
Right.
it will never be a strike to ball pitch unless it has more horizontal.
That's where Charlie Morton throws his two-plane curveball, back
Yes.
foot, because
Yes.
it's got that big two-plane action, but
Yes.
his
Yeah.
is a little bit different.
Yeah.
This is actually really close to what Kikuchi learned when he went to the Astros, because the Astros were having him throw his gyro slider. The Blue Jays were having him throw his gyro slider back foot, but it's a gyro slider that's very close. Gyro sliders and death balls are similar-ish.
Yeah.
Where they're tight and they're small and they're one plane. And so they had Kikuchi actually throw it low and away to righties instead of trying to go low and in.
Mhm.
And that's been a big part of why Kikuchi's been better with the Astros.
Interesting adjustment there. Now, the other question with Kumar Rocker, just thinking about long-term value and how people might approach him in 2025 for fantasy drafts. He throws the four-seamer a lot more than the two-seamer right now. I think both of you have raised some questions about that four-seamer. Does he simply flip it and throw more two-seamers next year? Does he try to add a cutter? Like, what's the ideal outcome for Kumar Rocker to sort of maximize that arsenal and be the most effective version of himself that he can be?
I don't know if it's as simple as just throw the sinker more. I think he has a good sinker, so the rule of thumb, especially I use Savant here mostly because a lot of people can just go check it out as well. But the -15, the arm side run, he has that. It's -16 arm side run, so he has the arm side run you want for a sinker. If you don't have a lot of depth, his normal depth it's like a 9-inch vert, 8-inch vert, like that's kind of a high inch. It's a two seam. It's not really a sinker. Doesn't sink much, but it does run a lot, so that's good. That also sets up a changeup if you throw the same thing. His changeup also does that. He just never throws it. So it'll be interesting how those things work together. But his sinker and his changeup, I think, profile a little bit better. And the problem is he's got a depth. He's got a death ball. So a rising four seam would make it like those two together would be
That's Fairbanks.
unhittable. But
Fairbanks is up with the fastball and then the death ball.
Yeah, and the death ball. And Fairbanks is another guy with the weird. It's kind of a loose spin that just goes straight down, and he throws so hard that it works really well. So that is what you want usually. So his arsenal's a little, there's something missing. And it's going to be interesting to see if there is a cutter option or if he just struggles to get the ball to kind of have any vert on anything really, because it's pretty clear that vert is
very much side to side with everything.
So maybe it's a function of throwing the death ball and some sort of sweeper or something that's more horizontal, or so cutter might be the option. And then he uses these all together to move them away from the same. He can tunnel all those pitches together. It's like a 13-13 four seam fastball on average. Like that is,
it's a little weird.
Dead center and dead zone. Like that is, you're not really close either way.
It's good that he throws 97. I mean, he's right now he's out velocitying it, but I think this is a little bit more concern as he ages and as people see him more often. We did see him give up two walks to lefties, and that's because they're just looking at that two seam. And if he tries to throw it inside, then he has to get it perfect to do a front door. And if he doesn't, It's either in the happy zone or it's a ball. And if he tries to get it outside, they see it forever and it goes strike to ball, and they can spit on it. That's Cal Raleigh was like not biting on any of his four seams. And so maybe he could just throw the sinker to lefties some, even where he throws the sinker up and away and he throws the four seam up and away and he plays those off each other. Because then you have a ball that goes more strike to ball, the sinker, right? And you could throw that and they take it. And then you throw a four seam in the same place and it stays in the zone and they take a called strike. So if he can get a little bit better, even just with the four seam and sinker, just playing those off each other, there's an opportunity for him to be fine. There are other pitchers that are sinker, slider, passable four seam. Michael King is a totally different pitcher. I'm not trying to say they're the same pitcher, but Michael King's best fastball is a sinker, and he throws a four seam that's just good enough to like throw that off his sinker, and he plays the sinker and the four seam to lefties, and he plays them off each other. I wonder if Rocker has that feel, but if you then again, if you look at his minor league walk rates, it looks like he probably has that feel. So I'm going to take Rocker.
The guy does that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, his four seam is not ideal in shape and not great by itself, but he can play it off of everything he uses. So I'm going to take Rocker over Leiter just because I think Rocker's feel is closer. Leiter's has a little bit of a lack of feel for me. It's a little bit all over the place. Although I love Leiter stuff, and by stuff plus he's the better pitcher, but it requires feel to be a starter. To get through the lineup multiple times to kind of play out these things off each other, it requires some feel, and Leiter could end up being a closer, I think.
I think I like Rocker better because the slider, the death ball, is just so nasty. Like if you have that to start with, that's a good floor, right? And then I guess my related question for both of you is, if the four-seamer remains a dead zone four-seamer with the extension that Rocker has, does that give him a little more leeway to get away with it? Because it's kind of part of the velocity thing. Even if he loses a tick, if that extension is upper end extension, it's still going to play up a little bit more than it would otherwise, right?
Yeah. I mean, Edwin Diaz is a good example. He's got such a low release that he got a lot of run on his four seam. So it runs a little bit like a two seam fastball, and he's just got incredible good extension and throws hard. So you can get away with it that way, and things look harder when you have extension. It's funny, but like the dead zone movement does the opposite. It makes it look softer. So it's like you're kind of playing two forces against each other. One is creating the idea that it's harder. The other one's creating the idea it's softer. So it's going to play pretty true to form. And at 97, it's just like, even if you know 97 is coming, it's tough to get on top of. So it'll be interesting. But I agree on the field thing. I think that we haven't seen even scratch the surface with adjustments he's going to make, and he seems like he's got pretty good feel for those things. It's just a matter of staying healthy. But if he stays healthy, I think he's got pitchability that he's going to find a way, and he does have one elite pitch, so that's a good sign.
Big league start number 2, about an hour away as we have this stream, so it'll be against the Blue Jays for Rocker. We'll see how that looks in just a little while. While we're talking about new pitches, are splinkers real? Is this just a thing people made up? Do they have their own unique characteristics? What are we really talking about when we're talking about splinkers?
Yeah, it's I don't know. I dove into the numbers, and if you here's first is here are over on the left here you've got Paul Skeens, Duran, Ben Joyce, and Mason Miller, who have sort of have named it splinkers and are sort of been in our consciousness as throwing splinkers. They all throw super hard. What's interesting too is none of them have great IVB on their four seams. So they are sort of set for this kind of pitch, I think. And then their splinkers are super hard. They average 96, I think, on their splinkers. And then if you look at their movement, their vertical movement, it's a small vertical movement. But now if you go down to the league splitter, you see, well, they look pretty much just like really hard splitters. The only caveat I'd say here is that only Mason Miller of the guys throws a league average four seam in terms of vertical movement. So the difference between a splinker and four seam is smaller than this chart makes it seem. And so what I did was I looked at other pitchers that had a velocity difference that's bigger than you'd expect from a two-seamer, and a vertical movement difference that's bigger than you'd expect from a two-seamer and maybe smaller than you expect from a splitter. So that's what a splinker is. It's in between the sinker and the splitter. It's harder than the splitter generally. It has less drop than the splitter. And so it's definitely one of those sort of tweener pitches. I think the official stance over at MLB Savant right now is that these are all sinkers. But they do have plus movement. So I tried to find a bunch of pitches that were close. I think they're all changeups. These are all split finger changeups. None of the sinkers I looked at got close. The closest might have been Jack Flaherty, whose sinker right now is changing, and it looks a little bit like a splinker. But generally, these are harder split fingers showed up in our splinker list. I don't know if any of these guys really you could call them splinkers, except for maybe Chapman and Bednar, who might fit in with that group as throwing splinkers. But all these pitches are really highly rated by Stuff Plus. It's a good pitch no matter what it is, but being in between a sinker and a splitter is a space that, like Savant says, maybe it's not worth splitting it out. Maybe it doesn't actually exist as a pitch.
But yeah, it's really good, as you can see with Paul Skeens' splinker, right? I mean, it's just a nasty, nasty pitch. And I'm curious, is the interaction between what Skeens has that splinker and then the low ride fastball, like, does that make the fastball better? Because you have to think about this pitch and the different ways they're going to move. Like, does this help offset the lack of ride on the fastball ultimately?
Yeah, 100%. They're also more depth. Sinkers sometimes are much more like we were just talking about with Kumar, much more horizontal. Guys pick up horizontal better than pick up the vertical, but this is a way to get the vertical killed a little bit. And here's something that's been common in baseball for a really long time. Ever since I grew up, since I was growing up, the pitch that most people struggle to add is a changeup. Like always, like especially in pro ball, guys that were in college were just hammer, slider, fastball, trying to learn some sort of changeup. It's like a 20% success rate. Most guys just get rid of it or just have it. You hear all these stories about guys, you're in the minors, I need you to throw 40 straight changeups. I actually had a minor league team.
Dan Staley had to throw 30. He was like, I'm just going to throw 30 in a row then.
Trevor Bauer did that, started the first inning. Every pitch was a changeup.
Yeah.
And we were very confused, struck on the side, and everyone's like, what's happening right now? I think he don't throw.
The coaches told him.
Coaches told him, and he was being, him. So
yeah,
throwing it in their face because that's what happens. So that's what was happening constantly. And I was fortunate. My dad didn't let me throw a breaking ball till I was 15. So that was my natural pitch, and I'm glad that he did that. And I'm going to do that for my son if he wants to pitch for sure. And so now we're finding guys and then especially hard for guys who threw hard, like getting because it was all about velo difference and they couldn't throw soft. They really, it was like it was against their nature. They couldn't do it. And so people started messing around with like, let's start with a fastball and let's start moving towards different grips and see if there's something in between.
So are you familiar with some Splinker grips? Have you seen them? I mean,
I have,
so the two seams, you're kind of like throwing along the two seams.
Yep.
Is the Splinker just sort of following those along into the horseshoe?
Start moving it up, and sometimes guys will stay inside the seams.
Yeah, like maybe have one finger inside, or
Skeens like right where you are now. He's a little bit higher up, and both fingers are inside the seams, but they're split out as pretty much as far as you can be without being on the outside of the seams. So that feels really close to a fastball, but when it comes off your fingers because you don't have a lace and stuff, you can get that weird, the spin slows down and you get like a splitter type of action, or it's starting to be a splitter, but it's still really hard, and they can keep their arm. It's not like I need to keep my arm speed up, but slow it down or whatever. You can just throw it like a fastball and let it move.
And you have a slightly more command of it. I mean, the one of the things one of the things that kind of goes in between the weeds sometimes with pitch design and like people throwing nasty things in the off season, and you see like the video coming out on oh my God, look at Matt Brash's new whatever it is, and it's on Twitter, is that you actually have to be able to command a pitch to throw it in the big leagues. like my story is always Carlos Rodon has a great changeup, but like, he never throws it because it's got too much movement and it's just he can't really harangue it.
Well, all right. So we're landing on it's real, but it may not get classified as
Doesn't
its
need
own
to be
pitch
called
by
a
Savant.
Splinker.
Yeah.
According to Mike Petriello, we're not calling it a Splinker because it's too much work, and no one else needs to know that except for the pitchers.
It's super important though for the Stuff Plus model, and we're trying to think of ways to get past this, because if you call it a sinker, it's probably going to do better in the rankings, because you're not considering it against other changeups. And you're like, wow, look at this sinker that has plus sink. It's amazing. And maybe that's fair. But if you put it up against splitters, you'd be like, it's a really hard splitter. Doesn't have as much drop as other splitters. And so splinkers are basically Stuff Plus model breakers depending on how you name them, because anything that can switch between a fastball and not a fastball is really tough. And so we're trying to think of different ways to consider anchoring. And that there was that piece at Saber Seminar that was like, hey, let's consider every pitch in your arsenal the anchor pitch, and like run the model over and over again. And be like, fastball against the curve, fastball against the slider, fastballs against the change, slider against the change, slider against the curve, and run it over and over again, and then sort of put it all back together. That is one sort of philosophy that people are having. The problem I have with that is I don't know how often hitters sit on your third best pitch.
Never.
Like if they're sitting changeup on Trevor May, and then Trevor May throws them, the slider, like does that happen a lot?
No, especially not with me. No,
even though you threw the changeup a lot, like
it's mostly because the changeup, sitting on a changeup makes a fastball unhittable.
Makes it vulnerable to everything else. Yeah, so that's why people mostly sit on fastballs, is they can maybe adjust to the other stuff, maybe. Yeah. But they, if they go the other way, they're just no chance on the fastball.
Yeah. So that's why it's generally not done. It is interesting. I love that you bring that. It's almost like we need to get to the point where we need to start, I think, buying into like a way of subcategorizing, like, okay, he throws a slider. Okay, now what kind of slider?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's another drop. It's like music genres. Like he makes rock music. What kind of rock music? Yeah. Like this is important. There's a lot of different kinds. And with different people. And just for the sake of you being able to make your models and things, I think that makes more sense, and having an understanding what it is. But does Splinker need to be on the broadcast when the guy throws a pitch? No, it doesn't. It doesn't need to be said on a broadcast. I think that's kind of where the sweeper problem was. Like broadcasters were getting really annoyed with having to figure out when to throw sweepers or not. And they were, the jury's still out whether or not a fan knows the sweeper's coming is relevant.
Yeah, it's super important to the catcher and the pitcher. They need to know it's a sweeper or the gyro if you have two. Yeah. It's super important to the modeler, the nerd. It's super important for advanced scouting. But, I see this, announcers will still do this where they're like, I just heard this last time on a broadcast. They were doing like, oh, and here's the home run he hit in the third inning, because you can't do the replays anymore right after because the pitch clock. so like two batters later, they're like, and here's that home run again. And he just recited the launch angle and exit velocity. And I was like, what? And he's just like, I know the 111 degrees at a 23-degree launch angle. And he's just like,
which is cool. Back to the game.
We don't care about it on that level. Nobody cares. Even me, the nerd, doesn't care about it on that level. I did hear one announcer be like, oh, 25 degrees, that's a really good launch angle. You get a lot of line drives, a lot of home runs there. And I was like, okay, well, at least you gave me a little bit of context. But I would say, a lot of the stuff needs to be left out unless you're telling a story. And you're like, you're telling the story of how Seth Lugo has 9 breaking balls. Then you can be like, he has a sweeper and a gyro and a this.
Why?
Yeah, and here's why they're all different.
And he uses this one. Yeah.
But if you're just using it to be like, and he throws a sweeper, it's like, okay, yeah, he threw a slider, threw a frisbee. There's a lot of different words you could throw in there.
Yeah.
Did you just say 9 breaking balls?
I mean, he has 9 pitches.
5. Technically, there's 5 on Savant.
Yeah. And he thinks he has some that he thinks are not on Savant. So He
He's
says,
like, I got one between those two. And he just can't accept. I love you, Seth. I know you're listening to this. You love this. He just cannot, like, if you're like, hey, this happened. Well, actually, like, even if he agrees with you, he can't fully agree with you. I love that guy. I love having conversations with him. But man, I'd be like,
I had him hooked as soon as I said
understand.
you got 7 pitches. He's like, nope.
Actually, it's 10. Okay.
So we have a new exercise, a really interesting thing that was put together. And I were talking a week or so ago about what attributes of a pitcher we would draft, and we were just kicking it around kind of in passing. And one of our listeners who joined the Discord, Ben Johnson, actually took all of the qualities that you could possibly draft, or at least many of them, and turned it into a giant draft board. So there are a ton of different traits. We are going to do this where we each get 8 traits, but they come from 5 or actually 6 different buckets. So we have pitch qualities, things like fastball velocity, fastball shape, breaking ball velocity, breaking ball shape, then off-speed velocity and shape, all separated. We have pitch arsenals. So you could have a 3-pitch mix where you got 2 above, 2 standard deviations, but you're prone to splits. You could have a 4-pitch mix where you got 3 pitches that are above 1 standard deviation, other pitches are league average, no platoon splits, or a 6-pitch mix with 2 above 1 standard deviation, everything else league average.
You could get a Seth Lugo out of this.
You could try to make a Seth Lugo out of this, right? And then there's some physicality traits. We're each going to get 2 of these. Pitcher could be left-handed. They could have plus extension, an uncommon release. Think of like a Josh Hader. They could be a pronator, a supinator, or they could have a feel for spin, which I think when we were talking in the meeting is more like backspin dominant is what you guys were referring to there.
I don't know. I think that's a little bit like the Lugo thing, where it's like feel for spin is the ability to spin different breaking balls. There are guys like Charlie Morton. You might say he has a feel for spin. I would say not necessarily. He spins the ball, but does he have a feel for spin? Because if he had a feel for spin, I think he'd have a slider and a cutter and that's the Lugo thing. So I think feel for spin is a little different than being a supinator, which is somebody who can throw a really good breaking ball. So feel for spin is like Sonny Gray, Seth Lugo, guys who have multiple breaking balls, can distinctly do different things with spin. That's what I thought of with feel for spin.
All right, so it's a little more broad even than that. Okay, that's probably a very good trait then. The pitcher archetypes that are in here, we each only get 1 of these. There's the command artist, pitcher that can limit walks, the workhorse, high innings pitched, or the equalizer, a pitcher that can limit hard contact. There's contextual factors. You could have like a very pitcher-friendly park. Oracle Park is the example here. That'd be your home park. Above average team defense or above average framing catcher. And then for fun, there's one we got to take out of this category. You either have a pitcher who skips PFPs, one who refuses to wear throwback jerseys, or one who's always at risk for sticky stuff ejection. So again, thanks to Ben for putting this together. He says Seth Lugo was the inspiration for the 6-pitch mix guy. I guess having a 9-pitch guy as a archetype sort of just means like
ridiculous.
It is Seth Lugo, like you drafted, or maybe Darvish. Darvish probably would say he has 9 pitches, right?
Yeah.
So we ran the draft order. I did a randomizer a little while ago. Eno actually gets the first pick. We'll do a snake draft though, so it's going to go Eno, me, Trevor, but Trevor gets 2 at the end, and then Eno will get 2 the second time he picks. And of course, there are some limits as to how many traits you can get from each of these buckets. So we'll try to see what pitcher we actually build at the end of all this. So, of all of these qualities, what is the thing you want the most? The board is yours.
I'm a basic biatch. Fastball velocity, come on down.
I had a feeling you were going
he
there.
gets hurt a lot, I get fastball velocity without. I might even get the workhorse later. So yeah, baby, I want fastball velocity.
All right, you're taking someone should just take the workhorse. You can't have the workhorse. Puts the injury bug on you in a big way. I thought fastball velocity was a good call for the first pick. I was thinking about the first rounders when I was walking the dog earlier today. I am probably going to screw this up. I expect to lose and have some kind of mutant pitcher that isn't very good at the end of all of this. But if I don't have premium velocity, I actually want plus extension, because I think you can get some of the benefits that you would ordinarily get from fastball velocity by having plus extension. So I'm going to choose that as my first trait.
Tampa has entered the chat.
Yeah. Oh, good. I'm Tampa. No, that's not that bad. It's a good thing to be. So maybe a little bit of a surprise, but that's what I want since fastball velocity's gone. What's your first pick, Trevor?
I'm going to do fastball shape. Then I think you can get away with, you can get a lot of the you don't necessarily have to have the highest velocity in order to get or have a really good hard to hit fastball, i.e. Bailey Ober. So, I think that having a good fastball shape, it's kind of tough to teach that. And if you have a really, really, really high ride eater, Imanaga type thing, then that's what I want. Fastball shape.
All right.
Yeah,
You get a
Landon
second one.
Knack sits 93, and he pitched really well last night. It's not necessarily great IVB, but it's great fastball shape above expected. And he's done really well for the Dodgers. He might be the Dodgers' third starter in the playoffs. So there you go.
Okay.
All right, second up, give me uncommon release with a good fastball shape.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's going to be a problem.
Funky.
Now we're talking Knack a little bit. Yeah.
All right, Trevor's building maybe a better version of Landon Knack, and Landon Knack's not bad to begin with. I'm going to take another physicality trait here, I think. I want to pair the feel for spin with the plus extension, because now I can do all sorts of weird stuff. What kinds of weird stuff? We'll learn a little bit more as we get a little further into this draft. But
I think you might be making a mutant that doesn't exist, which is actually going to be interesting in the end. I can't think of off the top of my head plus extension plus feel for spin.
Yeah, and when I looked at the plus extension leaderboard yesterday, I mean, Logan Gilbert, Freddie Peralta, there were a handful of names that popped out, guys that I like, and I think you're right. Like the feel for spin wasn't the thing that kind of went with that. So I don't know if this pitcher can function, but if the rules are that everything will work because this is fantasy land, then I feel like I'm off to a nice start.
Okay. So second, I'm going workhorse. Yeah,
we let him have workhorse, Trevor.
And I think I'm building a weird hybrid Garrett Cole, Seth Lugo, because I'm going to take 6-pitch mix, baby. Oh man, who do we have that has top tier fastball velocity, is a workhorse, and has 6 pitches? Ooh, I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Pete Corbin Burns didn't even have that.
Yeah.
Nice combo. I'll take the 4-pitch mix off the board since I'm going to need it, since I don't have good fastball velocity or shape. Having 3 pitches
with the feel for spin, at least. You throw like 3 breaking balls.
Yeah, it's the only way you're going to get away with having neither of the quality fastball things that you need. So back to Trevor for 2.
Well, I'm going to have to take the 3-pitch, but
yeah, just leave it there.
Maybe I'll just leave it there until the end.
Yeah.
I'll take the equalizer, limits hard contact.
Ooh.
And then give me breaking ball shape. Did we already do that?
Ooh.
No, breaking ball shape is available.
What did you start with? You had a uncommon release.
Uncommon release, and what was the other one? Something else.
What do you have?
Oh, uncommon release,
shape, fastball shape,
fastball shape, and breaking ball shape. Nice. You're making a funkster here.
So what you guys
Seawald so far?
Yeah,
you got a Paul Seawald. Nice. The freebie you guys gave me, you each took an archetype already. So now I've got the command artist for free. So I don't have to take that. I can leave that alone. I can go to the contextual factors, or I can go to the for fun. Or I can sneak in one more pitch quality. I should probably get some other pitch quality because I'm going to be in trouble if I don't get something in there. Let me take breaking ball velocity.
Need
a little velo. I'll at least get it on the breaking balls, even though I don't necessarily have it as above average on the fastball. Got to have something for velo, right?
Oh man, I wanted to.
Yeah, you would have
that one.
It would have been over, I think, if Eno got that.
Geez. Okay. All right. What am I gonna do now? I'm gonna go off-speed shape.
All right. Off-speed shape.
I want to have a good off-speed. If I'm gonna have 6 pitches, I want to have a good off-speed.
Okay.
And then I've got off-speed shape. This is fun. I've got off-speed shape, and I'm going to take Supinator.
Okay.
So
And-
somehow I'm throwing really good breaking balls and a really good changeup in my 6 pitch mix.
Yeah, who is this pitcher that you're building right now? Who is like
It's kind of close to Garrett Cole. He just doesn't throw his changeup much.
I bet I probably should get one more of the pitch qualities before they're all gone. I guess that would be off-speed velocity is the last thing left. So my breaking and off-speed stuff is good velo. I just have low fastball velocity. This might work with 4 pitches in a field for spin. I'm starting to think I've got something here.
Yeah. We're making some interesting guys here.
All right, so then Trevor's got 2 again.
Well, I already have the 3 pitch mix. I want a left-handed supinator.
No,
All right, so you got the lefty.
I took supinator.
Oh, you did take supinator. Pronator then.
Yeah.
So Trevor's got the left-handed and the pronator for those last 2 picks. All right, so Eno and I, we both have righties then, based on that. I'm basically down to, I think, the contextual factor.
Oh, wait, no, you can only pick 2 of these.
You can only have 2.
Or those my 2? Actually, I didn't pick any of these other ones, did I?
You had uncommon release.
I have uncommon
You
release.
could have one more from that group.
So I'll take pronator left. I'll take left-handed then, not pronator.
All right, so pronator's still out there.
So I'll take a lefty, and then home games are at Oracle Park.
Nice.
I think that's a real good landing spot there.
Off contact, avoiding homers, funky.
All right, so that means lefty and pronator are both still left from the physicality group.
No, he took lefty.
I took lefty.
He took
Pronator's
lefty.
open.
Pronator's up there. Yeah, I got feel for spin. Uncommon release is gone.
Feel for spin plus pronator would be interesting. I don't think that exists. You're definitely making something that doesn't exist.
Oh yeah, no, I'm definitely onto that. I think it's. Now I'm gonna leave that there. I actually want an above average team defense for my contextual factor. I want that more than a framer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and my reason is I don't have premium fastball velocity, so my fastball is going to be getting crushed. And if I don't have really good defensive options all over the field to help offset that, I'm going to be a BABIP machine.
All right. Well, I am going to have a good framer. I think I picked supinator. And wait, what's left in physicality?
Pronator's still out there. And I have plus extension. The only one I have is plus extension on my team.
So I have supinator and feel for spin?
I have feel for spin. I'm sorry. I have 2 out of that group. So I couldn't take pronator. So you have pronator.
I have supinator and pronator?
Yes.
Hey! Oh, I know who I am. I'm Pepio.
You're Ryan Pepio?
Yeah, he told me that the Rays tested him. He's both a supinator and a pronator.
How many guys in the league have that?
Not many. I'm going to, and because I'm stuck on pronator, and a framing catcher. I'm going to skip fielding practice. I'm going to be so good. No balls in play, dude.
Okay. That's fair. I'm going to choose for my for fun trait, always at risk for a sticky stuff ejection.
Is somebody keeping track of what we're choosing?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So I think my last ones are going to be framing catcher and pronator. I think I have no choices, but
yeah, that gets you down to 8. Yep.
I go framing catcher first.
Yeah, and then that means my last one was the command artist. That was the freebie I got because it was the last left of the group. And I think that leaves Trevor with the refuses to wear throwback jerseys.
Yeah, three pitch mix.
Is that a bad trait in a person?
I think so. I love throwbacks.
They're just generally not agreeable.
I'd be like, why do you care? Why does anyone care? That would be just one of those things that just be like, dude.
I thought the refuses to do PFPs. I was like, is this person gonna want to keep working hard? Like that just seems like a basic annoying thing that you just have to do. It's part of the job.
It is. I love it. I love a guy who's like, nah.
I'm actually pretty close to Pepio, because I got fastball velocity and off speed shape, which is Pepio. I just need a couple more pitches off the 6-pitch mix. Is he a workhorse yet? I'm like some sort of Pepio Garrett Cole mixture.
Doesn't seem like a bad combo.
I'll take it.
I got Brent Suter, so
You made Brent Suter?
yes.
Suter's very likable.
Dive and dodge.
Funky dude.
Suter in Cincinnati, I know it's like home for him, basically. That is wild to me. That's like the last place you'd want to have him. So you put him in San Francisco. You fixed it. You took the biggest thing that you'd be worried about with Suter, and you took care of it for him. So what do I have here? Plus extension, feel for spin, 4-pitch mix, good velo on the breaking balls and the off speed, but not the fastball, and always at risk for the sticky stuff ejection, but also a command artist. And an above average team defense behind him.
Pre-enforcement Walker Buehler.
Pre-enforcement Walker Buehler. Okay. Pre-enforcement Walker Buehler was like a Cy Young candidate like that. I think that's pretty good.
Yeah.
I think he had good extension.
Did you really build Brent Suter, Trevor?
I mean, if I'm kinder to myself, what do I have?
It's like a starting Paul Sewald.
It's like a starting the 3-pitch mix is the issue. Like I would like Max Fried, but he throws 6 pitches. Like I think Fried's like the really good version of this.
And you're a lefty, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm a lefty. So I'm trying to think lefties. And there just isn't. How many pitches does Lodolo throw? Now he throws hard.
Sean Manaea.
With
the new release point.
Yeah.
He's got a funky release point. His pitches aren't moving like normal. And he's throwing like high sinkers. I take Manaea. Manaea's had a phenomenal year. Yeah, I'll take Manaea. What is he, like third among lefties and punchies? Pretty good. Behind Sale and Crochet.
Yeah.
Or in Scooble, sorry.
It's a good company.
Yeah.
Good place to be.
I'll take Sean Manaea all day.
I think the real question you always have to ask yourself, especially in 2024, is did I do better than AI? And I think all three of us did better than AI. I mean, this is a pitcher with 3 arms, with the extra arm coming off the glove hand at the elbow.
And also is holding a ball, right? He's got holding 2 balls.
He is holding
3
2
arms
balls.
And no working hands somehow.
Yeah. AI's struggle with hands continue, but I guess if you were allowed with that 3rd arm to have another ball and only throw 1, that would be a pretty big element of deception. You know, your deception plus numbers would be off the charts good. So
which hand is the ball going to come out of?
Real question is, where's the rubber?
Yeah. Whoa, what's going on there? Maybe it's like more extension and rubber's just off the shot. I don't know. But yeah, I think we all did better.
Poor mechanics too. Jeez.
Yeah.
That guy doesn't throw hard.
But thanks again to Ben Johnson for putting that together. We added a little bit to the categories to make the draft run a little longer. And let us know in the chat and the Discord, who did we actually build? Who were we trying to build? I was trying to build Freddie Peralta.
You were with extension. I was trying to build Garrett Cole.
First. Yeah.
I was trying to build Garrett Cole.
I set a reasonable expectation for myself. Who were you trying to build, Trevor?
I had no plan at all, guys. I had no one in mind. I was just like, what would work together? What's going to be available, and try to create something that works with it. And I just went with Funk, which was tough, but I like the Manaea comp. I think that's a good one.
Manaea or Jamie Moyer, I think, was thrown out there by Perry in the live hive. I mean, Jamie Moyer pitched forever, so I think that's success as well. True. So we got a special edition of Name That Dude for today. I'm going to just hand the wheel over to Trevor because he came up with something pretty great for us.
Yes. So recently it's been brought to my attention how elite that Korean baseball fans are at giving major league players and their own players and Korean players nicknames. And they are imaginative, to say the least. So what I would like to do, there's a couple here that, I'll give you the translation of their nickname into English, and then you can start to guess. And we'll probably have to do some hints because it's kind of hard to do that. But so much of these are like their name sounds like a Korean word. You're not going to know that. So just to preface this, like here's some good ones. We talked on the show. I'll just give you a couple because I have 50 of them here. Mike Trout's nickname is translates into pigeon.
Nice.
And this is why.
The reason being, fish, he's a bird.
The reason being that there's a lot of 9s on his stat sheet. And one day to pronounce the number 9 in Korean is gu. And so they called him gu 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 gu, which which is what the sound that pigeons make. So they just make like a pigeon sound. It just like snowballs. The big famous one, the one I brought up with you guys, was Chano Park, 2 home runs to Fernando Tatis Sr. in the same inning. They called him Hanmandu, which is Hanmandu dumplings are it's like a staple in Korean food. But it directly translates into 2 grand slams in 1 inning, and that's what they used to call him up until this day, which is super funny. And young Tatis, when he was there in Korea this year, was eating a plate of Hanmandu and posted a picture of it. And Korea went crazy trying to figure out if he was in on the joke or if it was just a complete accident because it's really common. So that got me going. So here's 2 that I think you guys will be able to get, and it's not like it doesn't just like look like a Korean word. This person's translates directly into living legend.
Oh man.
Shohei Ohtani.
They don't do that for Japanese players.
They don't do it for Japanese
Nope,
players.
they don't like Japanese players. Got to
Okay.
brush up on your Korea versus Japan history here. That's too nice.
That's
too
too
nice.
nice.
They might think it, but they won't say it. Okay, so
Freddie Freeman.
I'll give you a hint. Because you could guess forever. I'll give you 2 quick hints. He's not playing anymore.
Okay.
So he's no longer playing. But he played recently.
Barry Bonds.
And he's gonna be a Hall of Famer.
Albert Pujols.
It's Albert Pujols. It's Albert Pujols. I was like, there's probably like 5 maybe that they would go with. But yeah, it's Albert Pujols. They called him living legend. And here's another one. This guy, same kind of time of playing.
Okay.
And his translates into teacher of walking.
Teacher of walking.
Is it not Juan Soto?
No, this person does not play anymore.
Does not play anymore.
I don't have a guess yet. I'm still thinking it through.
Okay. I'll give you a hint.
Joey Votto.
It is Joey Votto.
Yeah.
Good pull.
Teacher of walking, Joey Votto.
Great nickname.
This one's great too. The Chris Davis. It's Q-Day, just an abbreviation since Korean syllable based when making acronyms. It's basically just it's Davis. And then Chris Davis with the K was Jap Day, which is fake Davis. And then when Chris Davis fell off a cliff, they switched him. And they gave him a different nickname. So they've rotated, which I love it so much. But all of these are like based on, they look like actors in Korea. And Kimbrel's names is testicles because Kimbrel is balls.
Okay.
That's how they got there.
In Korean. Okay. So they just call them testicles. So they put, it's testicles, which I think is hilarious. But and this is my favorite one. Here's a bonus.
All right, tiebreaker.
If you can guess this, it'll be crazy. This guy's translated into college hitter.
College hitter.
Miguel Cabrera.
Madison Bumgarner.
No, think about it this way. He was a guy who really could hit in college, and it did not translate into the professionals.
Ben Grieve or
Matt Laporta.
Not that far back. This person, I think he was drafted in 2009. He's not playing anymore.
Brett Wallace.
That was a good guess. Dustin Ackley, college hitter. They call him college hitter. And you got to remember, when it comes to Korea and like guys who are obscure a little bit like that, probably a Mariner.
Yeah.
So they follow Seattle closely because Asia does, because Ichiro, and they historically have a lot of Asian players. So but yeah, Ackley was they were very excited for him, and then it did not college hitter.
I remember being pretty excited for Dustin Ackley. No, that's awesome. That's the kind of way my brain sort of works like that.
Yeah,
so I feel like I could wade into that world and start making up nicknames.
That's so baseball. That's how nicknames happen. Like guys have nicknames. You're like, I have no idea.
Well, we tend to like slide into some boring stuff where we just like take the last name and put the first initial on it, or like we do a lot of
J-Rock.
Yeah, we throw a lot of Y on the end of things.
I need Julio to have a better one. It's just
he does need a better
J-Rod squad
nickname.
is not the King's Court.
No, the actually the
The King was
methodology
better,
here is
yeah.
similar to what Pat Murphy did in Milwaukee. They were keeping track of the nicknames throughout spring training, and you'd see them at first, like, what? And then you'd like think about it, or they'd explain it. And you go, oh, okay, I see how we got there. The exact same sort of vibe. I think that works. I think people find that to be endearing more
Yes.
often than not.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was the last name that dude of this regular season, and it ended in a tie because I don't think Eno and I were going to pull Dustin Ackley out of thin air, but Brett Wallace. No
That's
one,
not bad.
nobody woke up today thinking they'd hear Brett Wallace's name on the pod. So I feel like we maybe made a lot of people laugh and hopefully had a good time. The draft was a lot of fun. Tell us who you think we built. Again, I'll admit it. I was trying to build Freddie Peralta, but you all knew that. Anyway, on our way out the door, just a few reminders. You can find Trevor on Twitter at I am Trevor May. You can find Eno at Eno Sarris. Find me at Derek VanRiper. Find the pod at Rates and Barrels. Thanks to everybody from the Live Hive for dropping in on our live stream throughout the season. This is our last live stream of the regular season. We're going to have some playoff shows. Those will not be live. Maybe we'll run one live one like closer to the World Series, but nothing on the schedule right now. So keep an eye on the Discord for details on that. You can join the Discord with the link in the show description. If you got a question for a future episode, send them there or email us, ratesandbarrels@gmail.com. Thanks to Brian Smith for producing this episode. We are back with you on Friday.
Thanks for listening.